Welcome. r/malicious compliance. My boss wanted me to train my replacement, but I didn't work there anymore. Hey Reddit. Not 100% sure this counts, but I want to share my story. I used to work in a grocery store back in 2016. I was 16 to 17 at the time. I don't work retail anymore, but I wanted to share this story I still remember to this day. It was a pretty normal night right before the end of my shift. I was one of the few closers at my store, so it was just me, my supervisor, and a cashier. I worked the self-checkout/customer service desk. My supervisor had just collected the tills and was in the back counting, and I was starting my rounds to take back the non-perishables that were left at the registers. I also might add that our store had terrible camera placement. Basically it showed all the registers and the supervisor's office door, which is where the safe was. This is important later. After putting up all the items that were left at the registers, I did my final checks of the store to make sure there were no misplaced/damaged item on the floor. I find a case of beer that was leaking in our beer/wine section, and since I wasn't sure how damaged the bottom of the cardboard case was, I had to drag it to the front so I could inform my supervisor about the damaged item before taking it to the back. We kept a cart or carts full of damaged items to be taken out by the morning crew. Since the supervisor's office is locked, while they are counting the tills, I call over to her and let her know that there was a damaged case of beer and I was taking it to the back. She responds with an absent "okay, sounds good." So I take it to the back, place it with the rest of the damaged items, and go back to the front to see if there is anything else my supervisor needs me to do before I clock out. There isn't. Next couple days are fine as I finish up the week and wait for the next week's schedule to be posted, and I find out that I'm not scheduled for the next week. I figure there must have been a mistake as there was someone working at the same grocery store who shared my first name. I go upstairs to my manager's office and ask him about the schedule and why I wasn't scheduled. He responds with "My bad, I forgot to tell you that you are suspended until the investigation is over. By the way, can you train your replacement today on the self-checkout/customer service desk?" Me, confused and annoyed at the moment, don't really pay attention to the second part of his comment. Ask him what he was talking about. My manager: "We caught you stealing that case of beer that you took to the back, and until the police investigation is complete you won't be working here anymore. Please turn in your uniform, name tag, and badge." I am furious, but I decide that I would just go with bit of MC in this situation. "Well bossman, I took the damaged case of beer to the back to be thrown out in the morning as per procedure, but since I won't be working here anymore, I guess you will just have to find someone else to train my replacement, since I clearly can't be trusted. I was the only person who could train someone for the customer service desk other than him." His jaw dropped. The look on his face was priceless as I took off my uniform and handed him my name tag and override card. I then proceeded to walk out, get in my car, and drive home. About 2 years later I joined the army, and I'm going for a job that required a security clearance. Guess what shows up? That suspension with an unfinished police report and the tapes from the security camera. I sit there with my interviewer as we watch the tape together, clearly showing that I did not steal anything. Needless to say, I was approved for my clearance. I ask if I can get a copy of the tape, and my interviewer agrees. It took 2 years, but I finally had the evidence I needed to sue for wrongful termination. But as the time is well over the statute of limitation, I'm unable to actually do anything about it. Either way, I decide to go pay my old workplace a visit over my Christmas block leave, and a couple people recognize me, including my old boss. He tells me that thieves like me aren't welcome in his store and that I need to leave or he would be calling the police. I told him to call them and that his claim would surely hold up. When I showed them the copy of the video footage of me stealing, the store had one of my favorite muffins, and honestly I really wanted one since they are only made there. Similar thing happened to me at an old job. I had a pretty specialized role, though by all means not irreplaceable, but the only person at the company who could do it. I'd been there a long time and felt my career stagnating, so when a better opportunity came up I eventually took it. I gave these guys 10 weeks of notice and said I'd interview people if they found candidates and train whoever we hired. Or if someone internal wanted to take over the role, I'd give them intensive training to get them up to speed. I had a lot of friends at the company and no desire to screw anyone over. So the weeks go by, I keep asking my director if there's any development in the hiring department. He keeps brushing it off. I made sure documentation was up to date, but this stuff really requires more than just book learning. Large-scale telecom network design. They finally start interviewing some people about 2 weeks before my last day and made an offer right as I was leaving. Of course the person couldn't start for a few weeks. I said my goodbyes, went off to my new job, which had me doing pretty intense travel for a few months. A couple weeks later the director contacts me asking if I'd be willing to consult for them and help their new guy get up to speed. I said sure, but since I'm incredibly busy at my new job, we need ground rules. First, my consulting fee is $X, which was 2x my salaried rate. I probably should have gone higher, but I was still trying to be nice. Also, you buy it in 20-hour chunks, and it's a minimum of 1 hour for every time you bring me into something. I did this so they wouldn't be calling me at 3 AM with a minor question. Director guy lost his shit at me. It's like he'd never worked with contractors before, which I know he had. He just couldn't fathom why I'd charge more than what my salary had been. Why I couldn't be available on short notice when they needed me, etc, etc. I just said okay, well, you approached me, and I'll be honest, I don't really want to do this anyway because my new job is really taking a lot of my time. So, good luck. That was the last I heard from him, though I did hear from others that were still there that the new guy got up to speed fairly quickly since he had prior experience, but it was bumpy the first few months. So I'm glad that people didn't suffer much. But after that experience and other things I ended up hearing over time, I'm glad I left there when I did. I once worked at a grocery store as a cashier and had an incident where I was suspended pending investigation, and it took weeks to figure out what the hell it was all about, as I was an incredibly anal, meticulous, careful, and hard worker. This happened well over 20 years ago and still is crystal clear in my mind due to the absolute assfuckery of it all. Turns out it was based off a customer complaint and threat to call the liquor board over me taking a bribe to sell to a minor. Once I was finally able to get the details, and after combing through literally 100+ hours of footage, I was able to piece together what happened and never even got an apology or support. Scenario as follows. Apparently the busybody bitch that caused all the pain and frustration for me was in line behind this customer. Guy walks up to the register with 2x 40 ounces old malt liquor. Me, ID please. Guy hands me ID. I check it and show camera over my shoulder. Policy due to sketchy neighborhood. The guy's in his early 30s. Me, thank you. Scans beers and total is $4.XX. Me, your total is $4.XX. Guy, how about $1? Me, your total is $4.XX. Guy, how about $2? Me, sir, your total is $4.XX. If you don't have enough, there's nothing I can do. Guy, okay, here's $5. I take his money and finish the transaction and go on about my day, annoyed but none the wiser that the next customer in line decided to selectively overhear what was happening and make up their own story about it. They proceed to spend days raising hell demanding I'm fired and brought up on charges, etc, over taking a bribe to sell alcohol to a minor. Fuck BBB and all those self-entitled meddling Karens like them. I was 19 years old, living as a carriage driver for a T7 paraplegic who was my best friend at the time, and working 2 full-time jobs to meet our needs. We almost lost our apartment due to the loss of income during that time, as well as the pain and frustration the confusion of it all cost me, and the most devastating part was the feeling of loss of trust in me, as I always worked so hard to be the most dependable, hardworking, and overachiever in everything I did that time. It really broke my heart to experience someone being so willing to try and destroy my life over something they overheard. I got rear-ended once. Some guy 3 cars ahead cut over into our lane and stopped. The two cars ahead of me managed to stop. I stopped, but the truck behind me wasn't so lucky. While we were pulled over exchanging info and talking to highway patrol, some old biddy made a U-turn and got out to point at me and tell the officer I saw the whole thing. It was her fault. She cut him off. Luckily the cop didn't take it seriously and the guy who hit me was honest about it. We were both kind of staring at each other like that didn't happen. WTF. But seriously, WTF is up with people who do that? A customer supposedly lost a wad of cash while in my shop. After calling a dozen times demanding I find it, somehow, he called and complained to management that I probably stole it. While an investigation was ongoing, I was told not to serve that customer and let my supervisor deal with him. There were only 2 of us in the shop. Fun part came that very day. My supervisor went out to run errands, and the customer came in to buy materials for a job. I told him, sorry, can't sell you anything. He freaked out and complained to management again. Unfortunately, I was following orders. The next 3 times he came in, I was alone, and he couldn't buy anything. Management finally declared the investigation closed. There was no investigation, really, they just wanted the customer to think they were doing something. In the end, his baseless accusation just bit him in the ass. Kinda wish I had found the money now. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit like. If you would like to see more, feel free to subscribe.